This is the budget hearing for neighborhood business development. On the line, I see we have Counselor Hogan, Counselor Driscoll. Those are the only two counselors that I see on here for now. So if I'm missing you guys, my apologies. Uh, and we have Commissioner Collins. I'm assuming that you would be doing majority of the presentation.
I will, Counselor.
Okay, so if we can, we'll just have you kind of give us an overview and walk through your budget, and then we'll ask questions either as we go along or towards the end.
Excellent. And do you have the budget available to you?
Yes, I believe we're starting on page 133, correct?
That's where I'm starting. So
Okay.
So I hope that's where we're supposed to start. We're all on the same page at least.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So good. And got the thumbs up from Counselor Driscoll. So I think we're good. Yeah, this is like I'm sure you've heard from a lot of departments. This has been an atypical year. It has been my first year in government, so as far as I know, this is how we operate, right? And I have to say, I've been incredibly proud of the work of city government and especially my team. I've got to be the luckiest person in my position in upstate New York, getting to work with who I get to work with. So I know that my Deputy Commissioner Jen Tipt is with us right now. Eric Ennis, our Director of Business, Michelle Skapansky, who heads up our neighborhood planning, and I think that is the team that I've got with me at the moment. So forgive me if somebody else has jumped on. But we've got a lot of accomplishments that we did in the past year. You know, you are all familiar with the fact that we manage about $7 million annually of HUD grants between the 5 million we typically get in CDBG, about 1.5 million in home and a little less than 0.5 million in ESG. We had another over 4.5 million come to us through two separate CDBG COVID-related grants and two separate ESG grants, all through the CARES Act. So our grants team had to double their workload without any extra staff. And a lot of that money went over to support businesses. So when you look at what Eric and Jen and their team were able to do with getting $1.3 million worth of money out to support businesses over this period of time, and a lot of that coming through the CARES Act funding, but not all of it, is really, really impressive to me. And just an incredible amount of work, again, as I said, without any extra staff. Among the other stuff that we did this year that I think is really cool, and the CARES Act money did help us do, we started a conversation that with the providers for mental health, street addiction, addiction and homelessness, that has led to a coordination unlike anything that we've seen in recent times in Syracuse. So there is now active coordination between those groups on street outreach. Liberty Liberty Resources is doing street outreach 24/7, partnering not only with the police department but 211 to be able to interact with people that are not in the crisis that requires 911, but does require mental health professionals. That's something that we've been able to cultivate those relationships among the providers, so they're working really well together, and fund it so that they're able to be out on the street. And that's made a significant difference in the lives of people that, until COVID hit, had been managing their addiction or their mental health with the services that were available to them. And when those services went away, so did their success. And it wasn't because of lack of effort, but it was because of lack of resources and tools. So being able to meet them where they're at right now is huge for us. We've also been meeting with pretty much everybody involved with keeping people in their homes. So the legal services providers that show up at housing court, the advocates, the people that are dealing with everybody that is being forced illegally from their homes. And that's been an ongoing conversation that we've had all year. So again, a higher level of coordination to make sure that people are stable in their homes than we've ever had between city government, county government, and all the providers. Our Financial Empowerment Center, turns out, is not only new, but the best in the country. There's not another one that is performing at the same level that we are. We have over half the people that have an appointment with the Financial Empowerment Center come back for a second one. They're meeting their goals. They are reducing their debt. They're increasing their credit. They are increasing their savings, so that people have they're again a foundation for themselves to be able to stand on and to do what they want for themselves. Our lead grant, so that we can remediate lead within homes, is we've been meeting regularly with HUD. We've been able to supplement the funding for that with a $150,000 grant from the Community Foundation, and we've put another $150,000 of CDBG funds towards that grant. So we're really in good shape with being able to, as the construction season comes up this spring, be able to make great headway with that effort to remediate lead within the homes. Speaking of homes, our infill project is underway. Over this past year, we received $1 million grant from New York State AHC. We've had six new homes for low-income home buyers are fully under construction right now. We plan on at least another 15 this year. And with the American Rescue Plan Act, expect we'll be able to do more than that. But we do have the funding in place for not only the 6 that are up, but an additional 25. We're looking to plow forward beyond that. Our Cities Rise grant that makes sure that we have the ability to connect with neighbors through neighborhood ambassadors has a partnership with a peacemaking center that hires the neighborhood ambassadors. That's been highly successful. We've got 4 ambassadors. They've been active in our trouble buildings, such as Parkside Commons and Skyline, but they've also been active throughout the neighborhoods in connecting residents to our department, to codes, to other housing resources, and just making sure that if someone needs help but they don't know how to get it, we can connect them to it. And the last thing I wanted to highlight is our Zombies grant. We've got a lot of different ways now through that Zombies grant that's been effective in making a difference in blighted housing that is in foreclosure, but it hasn't made it all the way. Our law department's taken 7 different loan servicers to court to force compliance. And we've put money into the buildings to fix, to be able to fix some of that blight, and we've been able to collect back already 2/3 of what we've put in. And really nice, our outreach has spurred action without us having to go to court or to put our money into it. So we have had loan services be responsive to that. So from a highlight standpoint, that's really what I wanted to talk about as far as the different ways that we've been able to make a difference over this past year. From a funding standpoint, if we now take a look at page 133, we're looking at from a building permit construction value, we are expecting growth this year, pretty healthy growth, based off of what we've what we've seen as far as permits that are rolling in and projects that have been on hold last year that may come online. This is always a tough one to predict, just because of the fact that we don't control it. We're simply trying to predict it, but we do have reason to believe that it's going to be pretty healthy this year.
Commissioner, could I ask a question on that one?
On anything, I should stop talking right now. Go ahead.
No, that's good. I'm just curious. What exactly does if the prediction is on there from 14 million to 107 million? That does seem like a massive jump. What's the projection that's accounting for that nearly tenfold jump there? And maybe you could explain what the building permit construction value really entails, and what that indicator points to.
So I believe that most of that jump is related to school construction. Although I will, and I'm seeing Deputy Commissioner Tift nod her head yes. So I appreciate the confirmation on that one. Thank you. But that's, if you look at joint school board construction work, I believe that's where most of it is. But I will confirm and get back to you.
Okay. Cool. So that large jump from 14 to 100 to 200 is mostly accounted for in we expect the JSCB budget, that rebuilding schools and stuff. Yeah.
So I believe most of it's attributed to that. We did have, as you look at the 100 to 200, we did have a number of projects that were commercial projects this year that were held that we expect are going to either as presented or in a modified form are going to continue forward.
Great. Okay. Sorry for the interruption. Thank you.
No, that's good. The one thing that I do want to point out, that the side of projects induced value, I think we're missing a zero there. Well, I think actually it's a full-on typo. We're probably looking at a similar number to last year. So it says 1 million compared to 89 million in 2019 and 75 in 2020. It's probably in that 75 range. But again, we're gonna confirm that one. Just caught that at the last minute that that's most likely a typo. So heading down, any other questions on the business development stuff? We've got the team here to be able to dig into any of that if you need.
Sorry, Commissioner, I was getting texted by constituents here and I sort of lost my train of thought. CITA is still involved with JSCB, obviously, right? As far as the bonding issues go.
So we have Eric Ennis on here right now. I'm going to let Eric talk to that so that I'm not interpreting things here.
Yeah, I'm just wondering because I know the bonding, at least when I was on the JSCB, was predicated on future state aid, city aid to the schools. And that's still how we pay off that bonding. CITA is sort of a vehicle, correct, Eric?
Yeah, sorry, Council. Your understanding is correct, though, and we've done phase 1 and phase 2 of JSCB. So phase 2, that went through the direct bond issuance through CITA for that project.
Well, CITA is just a pass through, more or less, correct?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And because of that financing going through the bond, it is more advantageous to work through the IDA, and that's why the IDA is used as that vehicle. But yes, you're correct. The IDA is used for that purpose.
Yeah, occasionally, you know, because I had a 5-year absence, I found some things have changed. But as long as I heard that, I just wanted to reconfirm that I still had an understanding of that. So sorry to interrupt you guys.
No,
Just throw my phone away from my constituents. That's it. Heck with
it. Constable, we are here.
My full attention now.
Any other questions for the business team?
Can you just go through the, you stopped right before the Sedco loans that were closed? We see the 34.
Yeah, so we're gonna leave Eric off of mute so he can answer those questions.
Okay.
Thank you, Mike. So this year was certainly a unique year from Sedco's perspective. All of you as counselors are aware, we did do a round of emergency loans that we provided financing to businesses as well as grant programs. And so one of the things that we typically are tracking from a metrics perspective is the amount of loans that we had closed. And so because of that, earlier this year, I believe we did a number of, I think 23 was the immediate number in the early days of the pandemic. That's why you see that such a significant uptick in our activity for this current fiscal year. And then in the year prior, and now as we move back to what I would say is kind of, I think now we're moving away from the immediate crisis response with COVID. So that reflects some of those numbers there. In Sedco, we provide these loans to small businesses looking for expansion purposes. We also are able to assist new businesses as well under the criteria of, again, economic development purposes. So that just, there's a reason why you kind of see those spike in the numbers, and that did have to do with our immediate COVID response.
Okay, thank you. You want to go ahead, Commissioner Collins?
Sure. So neighborhood development, if we look at what we've got within a lot of those numbers right there, they're related to our HUD grants. That this is what's possible a lot of times through the entitlement dollars that we receive. So the emergency home repairs, that's with our wonderful partner Home Headquarters. direct home buyer assistance, again with home headquarters. Rental units rehabbed. We work with home headquarters. In this upcoming year, we're also working with Jubilee, and you guys know our important relationship with the land bank. Relocation assistance. Catholic Charities is our main partner on this. And public services, we're looking at all of our partner human service agencies that are taking the HUD dollars and making sure that people are stable in their lives and therefore stable in their homes. Any questions on any of that? Okay. So moving on to the dollars.
Sorry, actually, Commissioner, yeah. I just had one. When you talk about relocation assistance, that line.
Yep.
I'm just curious, personally, where are we from, in a capacity standpoint, in relationship to need versus what we can do? I'm always just curious how many people actually need that relocation and how many, we're able to assist in relationship to how many people actually need the services, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's not a simple answer. And a lot of it has to do with when someone first interacts with an agency, be it the county DSS or reaching out to us or one of the partners. At what point in their struggle are they reaching out to us? So if our first interaction with somebody is in the shelter, average stay in the men's shelter right now is about 8 nights. So pretty much everybody that chooses to come into that shelter, they're able to get them rehoused in about a week. You have people that reach out to us as they are close to losing their home. Well, it depends on what that looks like. If they reach us like right before they go to court, it used to be a lot of trouble. It's less trouble now because of the fact that the lawyers, the volunteer lawyers, they're staffing housing court. So if the person chooses to show up to court, they're going to have legal representation, and so that helps a lot as well. It's the ones that choose to not show up at court for a variety of reasons that really end up in the toughest situation on that, and they can be the toughest to track. So I guess the shorter answer is eventually we are able to help pretty much everybody that needs help. That is a hopeful but not necessarily strong predictor for what this next year is going to bring. The eviction moratorium this past year has been something that has affected half the system, and has left the other half of the system really struggling, right? So you've got a lot of landlords that have not been able to have enough revenue to maintain decent housing, or are doing so in an unsustainable way. Fortunately, most the landlords that we read about are the ones that are doing it wrong. The majority of the landlords are not. The majority of the landlords are doing really well, and the majority of the tenants are finding a way to be okay. But when courts fully open and at June 30th, when the CDC eviction moratorium ends, if it doesn't get extended from there, we're just in for a world we've never experienced before. And so everything that we're doing right now is planning towards that. Does that get to your question?
Yeah, I guess so. I was kind of, I think so. I guess I was just wondering if there's those we have to turn away, which I'm gathering from your response that there's not really, that that if people are, say, in a situation where I don't know if the relocation refers to those kind of situations where, say, a pipe bursts in someone's apartment or whatever it is, where the situation suddenly becomes unlivable and they come to the city for help. Is that included in that? And do we have any that are not, that we're not able to help, I guess is.
So yeah, so income qualification is the big barrier to what you're talking about. If the assistance that is provided to you is through the Emergency Solutions Grant, then you need to be below 60% or below 50% average median income. If it's the community development block grant or the treasury money that is going through the county to be able to keep people in their homes with rental assistance, you have to be at or below 80% average median income. If you're 81%, there is no financial assistance for you. There can be guidance for you, but there's not financial assistance for you. And that's a real struggle, and that is one of the things that we'll be looking at the American Rescue Plan Act funding to see if what we can do to address that 80 to 100% average median income group that really is struggling and deserves help, but there's not federal assistance for it. I will say communities that are larger than us, communities that are 500,000 people or more, where Onondaga County is at 460,000. The first federal relief that came in April of last year, they did have money to help people like that. That money did go to those communities, and it did not come to Syracuse.
Thank you. That thoroughly answers it. Appreciate it.
Other questions? Okay, so let's look at what it costs to run the department. And one of the things that is unique to our department is we are very significantly self-funded. If you look at the administration dollars that we were able to pull from the HUD grants, and then from the other grants that we write, that I referenced the Zombies grant, the HUD-led grant, the Cities Rise grant, the Community Foundation grant that we really won't pull much money off of that at all. But those grant dollars allow us to be able to do a lot of this work without hitting the general fund. So that's just that positions us a little uniquely compared to the other departments. So you'll see in there, the position for my line at that rate on page 134. And again, that's largely backstopped afterwards by CDBG funding. And then the personnel services and contractual services after that. So in respect to time, I don't want to go through every line. It's not much different than before, but I'm happy to answer any questions we have here.
Commissioner, excuse me, Councilor Allen. Commissioner, I was just wondering, like, how many positions under your, now I'm not talking codes or anything, because they're obviously all civil service, but what about your people? Like, most of them are executive. They're not civil service.
So it's I appreciate the distinction there, because that wouldn't be obvious to everybody that doesn't study city government. So the code enforcement, which includes a central permit office, is within the Department of Neighborhood and Business Development, and Director Jake Dishaw will have his own budget hearing on that shortly. So pulling the code enforcement budget out of this, we've got about 26 people that are in this department, and all professional positions. So our code enforcement, our business development division of minority affairs, which also has the budget that we'll talk about here, neighborhood planning and grants teams is the departments that you're looking at with us.
Were you fully staffed during the pandemic, or did you have to lay people off out of that 26?
So we did not have to lay anybody off. We did all, for myself on down to everybody, we did take the 2 furlough days that happened last year. And we did have positions that were, that went vacant, and we did not fill immediately. So for instance, the office administrator position has been vacant since the retirement incentive last year. We are in the process of filling that one now. Eric Ennis had a period of time without any staff, but is now fully staffed. And then the other part of it is we did also we had one person transition from Eric's staff over to Division of Minority Affairs. So we did gain staff in the Division of Minority Affairs, desperately needed before we went into COVID. The amount of work that Lamont did over this past year in not just making sure that businesses were okay, but actively working to provide resources to our minority and women-owned businesses in this community, you just couldn't expect 2 or 3 people to do that. It is impossible to expect what Lamont did over this past year. Truly impressive work between what he did, Eric, Jen, Michelle, the workload that they've done at Loretta, who runs the grants team, and all that staff, the work that they've done in this past year, it's literally doubled for everybody without extra staff.
Councilor Allen, this is Sharon, if I might add, while technically Michael's team was not considered classified as essential, they were absolutely leaning into our COVID response coordination with the county, our COVID response coordination with not-for-profits and service delivery around housing, around finding out what businesses need, about food delivery, coordination and distribution, just everything that had to do with what people needed during COVID. That was Mike's team.
Deputy Mayor, I concur. It was lucky that we had a team like that during this last year. Obviously, you were the point of the spear, basically, to try to make some sort of sense and to alleviate some of the suffering that our community faced as far as the COVID crisis. I know Eric did a great. Eric must entertain a half a dozen phone calls one day with me regarding restaurant people, and Jen and all your staff really performed admirably. And I sort of stressed this during my Parks Department meeting, is that you showed incredible being nimble was the call of the day, just doing what needed to be done, So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor. Appreciate it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Other questions on page 134, 135? If not, we can roll into the Department of Division of Contract Compliance and Minority Affairs, and we do have Lamont Mitchell with us. But if we take a look at what we've got there on page 136, just as far as what we expect from a production standpoint, we're not looking at too drastically different on the dollar amount of contracts and projects from 21 to 22. The MBE, WBE contracts is coming down a little bit. Again, that's a prediction. One of the things that we all got super excited about 2-3 weeks ago, because we're all trying to grow the number of businesses that are eligible to do work as an MBE or WBE. We had 2 women gain their master electrician license. They are in business together, been doing business for about a year. Lamont's been working with them to be able to be fully certified as MBE and WBE. About the part of the reason we're really excited about this, about 3% of master electricians across the nation are women. And so to have 2 of them, we were able to mail out 2 licenses on the same day. That was just kind of fun for us to be able to recognize that, because that's 2 women that went on a journey that if it was easy, a lot more people would be doing it. So we are absolutely growing the capacity within the community to be able to meet those contracted needs.
Commissioner Collins?
Yeah.
For a second, since Lamont is on the line, I was just curious, because of the pandemic last year and a lot of people weren't working, did you see like a uptick in minorities that were opening their own businesses and coming through to get certified within our city?
I seen a consistent amount of people applying to be certified with the city of Syracuse. I know, speaking to Jen, she said it was like an uptick in people creating businesses. We still haven't found out how much of those are going to be minority because they don't give you that type of data, but it does give a number. So we're expecting to see an increase in some business to be on, but it's been pretty consistent.
Okay, thank you. It seemed, just from what I was seeing and hearing, it seemed like a lot of people, they had the extra time and the resources over the past year to start branching off and starting their own businesses. So I'll be
Yeah,
interested to see once the data actually catches up what the
right.
increase was.
Yeah. Yeah. So, because most of them have to wait a year to apply for the
Okay.
NBD programs. So we should see, and I'll update you on what I see as time
Okay.
goes by.
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Look, Councilor Allen, if I could ask a question of Lamont. Lamont, was one of is that Ms. Davis? Is she the electrical contractor you worked with?
It's Karen Jones and what is
Yep.
her partner?
Shawnee
Shawnee
Davis.
Davis.
Shawnee
Yep.
Shawnee
Davis.
Davis.
Yeah.
She's from the
Union.
EW local. Yeah,
Yep.
in fact, I got a call from a few of my electrician friends who are working on a school project with her.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they
She's on
think
our
very
plan.
highly of her. So
Yeah,
that's
they are.
terrific.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, we're
Counselor,
really. They
I've
are on our
also
plan.
connected her with home headquarters, and Carrie is thrilled.
Oh, good. Excellent. Excellent.
Councilor Allen, to your point about starting the businesses, one of the things that a lot of us, yourself included, know very well is that starting it is one thing, having the access to the capital and to the other resources that help you be successful is what makes or breaks you. And when you look at the work that Lamont did last year in doing a series of meetings with bringing in the experts to be able to tell people, hey, look, not just here's the resource, but here's how you access it, and be able to make those connections. That's where we're going to find more stickiness to some businesses being successful. That if our Division of Minority Affairs had not been proactive in that way and creative and knowing what that community needs, that business community needs, there'd be a lot more business failures in this next year than we're likely going to see because of that work. So definitely want to highlight that. Okay, so looking at the rest of the numbers, I mean, really the difference that you see from
Michael, just one more thing,
Yeah.
about not only building Lamont's physical staff capacity, but also we're looking solidly looking at B2G Now software for more streamlined accounting of numbers and contracts and et cetera. So that was recommended through the auditor's office, and we're definitely moving on that.
And that is, we get excited about the things that government people get excited about, but that is one of the things that actually we are pretty excited about. It's going to make us even better and free up some more of Lamont's time to be able to understand the stuff that then turns around and leads to good business support. So when you look at personnel costs within MBE, that actually, within Minority Affairs, that actually shows up under the professional services line. So the 500 line there, that's where the salaries are, and so that increase that you see is with the fact that we've got Devon Kinsey has moved from working in our business development on over into the Minority Affairs division, and that capacity, you've heard me talk about why that capacity is so critically important. So any questions on that?
Yeah, I guess I would ask what is the reasoning we think behind the dollar amount of contracts and people going down from 1920 to 2021 to 21-22? I know those are projections, but why would we imagine them, especially seeing that increase in potential production, the JSCB and the other projects we mentioned? Why would we imagine MWBE contracts going down?
Good question, Counselor. That's because the JCB project it's going to wind down and then it's going to tick back up in the next couple of years. And that project brings a great value, a dollar amount when it comes to minority participation in the contract amounts. So we'll see a drop as the project closes, and then we'll see it start to tick back up as phase 3 of JCB comes along.
So, Counselor, that look on your face suggests that you're seeing a difference there from what we'd seen before. And
well,
so
yeah, it's we're seeing on the other graph we see a spike in 2021 and 21-22, whereas in this we're seeing a downturn. So is that because the money's coming in and then the work will be a year or two in the pipeline? Is that the dynamic?
Yeah, I think that's correct, Counselor. This is Jen Tift. We should, I believe, see, and Lamont, correct me if I'm wrong, but we'll likely see an uptick in the contracts monitored and the projects monitored in 22-23, based on the current pipeline being built back up to do another phase now. Does that make sense?
The spike in 2021 and 21-22 coming in will then be actually contracts going out in 23-24, those years. Yeah.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I got it.
The
Yep.
other thing that is unpredictable for us is what other markets will require, whether the markets that have public dollars will require compliance. So that's what we don't know yet until we get through this year and see what begins to be in development.
Great. Thanks.
So we've worked through the pages that represent business development, neighborhood, the neighborhood work, and minority affairs. So code enforcement is next, which I believe we're doing at 11 o'clock. And any other questions we can answer for you? And any other opportunities to brag about these amazing people I get to work with?
Michael, I'm wondering about, it's under your purview, right?
So the funding runs through us, but the administration does not.
Okay, yeah, I know that, but I mean, the funding runs through you, and
Yep.
I think even though I can't immediately find this in the book, what do we got that 80,000 or something?
80,000 is and budget director Rudd is on here, but last I recall, we were right at 80,000. The same. So it had been budgeted at 80 last year. It got cut to 60 during the contingency budget. And so we believe we're able to fund them at that full 80 again this year. And so that's where we put it at.
Well, I was wondering in this, maybe Director Rudd can talk to this, but in the next budget, whatever we're going to call it, supplementary budget, or I just think, especially as we come out of COVID and the pandemic and we try to resurrect some of our participation in neighborhood meetings, I would think we would need to spend more money on things like TNT. We have transferred those meetings to Zoom after a while, and while that's okay, I think we're going to have to do a lot more to apprise the people in the neighborhoods on how government operates. So I would urge the administration to spend maybe another 40,000 on TNT, because it's becoming apparent during this pandemic that a lot of times people don't know what's going on, and that's not our fault. It's just the way people communicate now. So that's just this personal opinion of this city councilor.
I'll
we
just
should
say
definitely be
noted,
able
and
to
I
give
see
them.
Jimmy too. I'm sure he's going to say something similar. But
Would it be possible to the money that we cut last year? Would it be possible to just add that back? I know we're going to give them the 80,000 this year, but that's typically what they would normally get. So the fact that we had to cut them last year, will we be able to just restore that? Is that an option? You think, Brett?
it's an option. It hasn't had any decision, but
Okay.
Aren't you the budget director? Don't you make all the decisions? What's the story?
Councilor I help people make decisions.
Councilor Allen, the budget that's in front of you can't be changed by the administration, but it can
Right,
be
right,
changed
right.
by the council by amendment. They can't change it at this point.
Right. We weren't talking about this budget though. We were talking about the additional budget with the extra money coming after the fact. That's what I was referring to.
We're trying
So
to be nice. That's it. Instead of amending the budget, we want a promise from extra $45 million or how much money that you're going to put more in. That's, right, Councilor Allen?
Right, Hogan.
I'm trying to be nice.
I'll speak in support of my my other fellow counselors as well, Councilor Allen and Hogan there, that it's TNT is, we hope the arteries that lead back to city government that connect us into the neighborhoods, and definitely needs more resources if we're going to actualize our vision of making that a functioning artery. But I know you're about to say something, Commissioner Collins. I'll let you go.
Actually, I was going to say, councilors, without question, it is important to the administration that the community feel this money, and that it impacts their quality of life and their day-to-day life. So we're on the same page.
It's, it's funny because many of the folks that would show up at TNT meetings in person, you never see them on Zoom. From an isolated group, what we've done is segregated a lot of these meetings, and you don't really hear from everybody in the neighborhood. So it's really difficult. Sometimes things could be happening around the corner from them that they would naturally know about through a TNT meeting or a neighborhood watch meeting, and they don't know anything. So I think it makes it makes the mission of government a lot easier when people are aware of what's going on, obviously. So thank you, Councilor.
My last point on to that, councilors, is one of the things that we've talked about, and Deputy Mayor had referred to, us being out in the community for for food relief and everything else. We have throughout this past year, through WebEx and also in person, done everything we can. I think our outreach from government to community has been stronger than ever. And so that's something that I'm really looking forward to continuing. And I think one of the ways to be able that we demonstrate that from a data standpoint is that the amount of comments that we have related to our HUD grants is significantly higher than we've ever had before. And that includes the different ways that we reach out. So all to say, we value exactly the same thing that you're talking about.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Collins. Do you have any closing remarks, any goals, aspirations for the department for this coming year that you would like to
Councilor
share?
Allen, do you mind if I chime in with one more question before we wrap?
Sure.
Commissioner Collins, you mentioned earlier, this is something I had brought up with the administration in multiple conversations. You touched on something that I've definitely got a lot of constituent outreach and emails and stuff. It seems that we've definitely done a very very extensive job in New York State looking out for tenants with the moratorium and everything that's gone on, but the amount of the gaps in the system that we've left for landlords, particularly small mom and pop landlords that have 2 or 3 properties where these tenants have not paid rent since the lockdown began, and these kinds of situations. I'd imagine that the gap that's left might be hard for city government to cover on its own. But just any thoughts about resources, response to landlords that have been, as you said, when we talk about this, there's always a dynamic of the horrible landlord is what comes to mind first when the word, similar to politician, right? We both have the similar gigs where people think about the horrible one first and foremost when the word comes up. But we all know that as with city government, there's loads of good people doing good work. And as with landlords, there's loads of great folks doing great work. And they've really been, I feel, left out in the cold in a lot of this. So have you guys had any brainstorming or kicking around about what kind of relief we could give to those small landlords that are struggling throughout this, or any conversations to that effect?
So yeah, it's been a 13-month, almost 14-month conversation at this point. Yeah. And it's from a personal side, you really feel it for the mom and pop ones. I will say that when you look at it from a data perspective, the large nonprofits, the large for-profits, they're hit the same way from a percentage standpoint. There's not a sector of that market on the provider side that's not just really sucking wind. And so when you look at the Treasury money that we've got, the county did a survey before they put the money out to figure out what's need compared to what's available. And the need, from what they could extrapolate, they had about a 10% response rate from the number of, if you look at number of units for rent in the city compared to the number of units represented in their survey, they got about a 10% response rate, which is pretty good. And it showed that the need was probably about 10 times the amount of Treasury money that we had. It would take 100% at least of the American Rescue Plan Act money to meet all of the need, if that's fairly accurate. So since that's not possible, so the question becomes how do we make a meaningful difference? And we're doing it in a few ways. One is working with the county and pushing out how people can access the Treasury money that is now available. We have partnered with the county so that they administer the CDBG and ESG funding that we have, because that's the most efficient way for us to do it, and make sure that we have to spend as little money as possible on administration, get as much into the hand of landlords. So what does that leave us with? Well, that leaves us with that set of tenants that are over 80% income, that really need the help. And that's where we're going to be looking at the American Rescue Plan Act and seeing what's a meaningful amount of money that we can apply there in a way that works. There's going to be the very, very small amount of landlords that are going to still struggle to access it because their tenant won't participate in the process. And the reality is we cannot take federal dollars and distribute it without full-on documentation of the need. And the need is always going to be tied back to the tenant. So that's a gap that through government is there has not yet been a way to be able to address. Don't know if others could. We know that it exists. We also think that we don't have evidence that it's more than a very, very small minority. But for the majority of it, we think that we're going to be able to do something.
That's great information and a good answer. Thank you, Commissioner. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate the question. Councilor Allen, to your point about my hopes for next year, the analogy that I've used over this past year is that crisis creates opportunity, and in the opportunity that we've had this year is that the concrete that government has always been set in, that is said, hey, this is the way that we always do it. The concrete liquefied, and so that has been an opportunity for us to reset these forms that guide where that concrete is going to recure. And we've seen it with the way that people have done remote work. If you look at, so John Vavanese has joined us, who heads up all of our finance stuff. That is not John's living or office that he's coming in from. He's coming in from home. Other staff are here from the office, and that's a benefit that we've been able to have, of people been able to be where they can do their best work. We've been able to make sure that we can interact with residents in ways that are broader than we've ever been able to do, and we look forward to doing a lot more in person like we used to. But I feel really, really good about what this next year presents for us as far as the opportunity with the American Rescue Plan Act funding and the knowledge that we have in how we can do things differently that we've learned this past year. That's it for me.
Okay, thank you. It wouldn't let me unmute for a second. All right, so thank you all for joining, and I will see you guys back. I'm assuming we're back on the same line in about 11 minutes for the code enforcement budget hearing. So thank you all. And thank you, Commissioner Collins and your team.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
NBD
counselors.
team. Appreciate everyone. Thanks, Counselor Allen. Thanks, everyone.
Everyone.